Welcome to another interview in our FM Expert series. I'm delighted to be joined by David Emanuel. Hi David, how are you?
Good, thank you. And you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Good to see you. David is, many of you will know, is the Managing Director at IWFM. And David, I had a look earlier. I think you've been doing that for about 21 years, it told me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so it was 19
Over
months
21 years. Yeah,
yeah,
that's amazing. So David has been surrounded by FMers for all of that time. And David, you're going to talk to us about volunteering, engagement and participation in FM, because you've got obviously a huge amount of experience in this. So thank you for joining us, and I shall hand over to you.
Thank you. So I've enjoyed watching all the FM Expert series, and I think there's probably almost about 50 of them done now.
Yeah.
And then I was looking over them and I thought, well, why am I enjoying them so much? And I thought, actually, it's because I know so many of them.
Yeah.
It's not only that I know them, I've been out for dinner with them, or I've worked with them, and some of them I'd like to call friends rather than just colleagues.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought to myself, well, why is that? And it's not because of my role at IFM, it's because I've volunteered and done stuff. Yeah. So just as I think Martin Reed, the editor of FM World, stated, he's not an FM, and nor am I. I'm not a practitioner, I'm not a tactician. So I thought, what kind of FM tips and advice can I give? And I really thought, what brings me uniquely to the table, and it's because I've spent the last 20 odd years doing things outside of IFM. I've volunteered on quite a few different things. So, yeah, so I want to talk about participation, volunteering and engagement, because I think FM is all about people. Yeah. And I think the more people you know, the better it is for your career.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a difference between being involved and networking. And I think that sometimes networking is more about sort of adding to your sales prospects lists. Rather than just meeting people that could be useful to you or you could be useful to them. So I'm not trying to propose that you get involved into the sector to get something for nothing. Yeah. And actually what I'm proposing is you get involved to give, not to take. Somewhere down the line, things will be reciprocated and opportunities will arise, and that will be beneficial to you too. But I'm really talking about you're giving for the sake of giving, not on the expectation of receiving.
Can I ask a question? Remember where you are. Do you think that increases with age? And I'm asking this actually from my age perspective, because I'm thinking I'm more about giving and helping than I was 20 years ago. I do think it increases with age. Do you?
I do. I do and I don't. So for me personally, yes, it has.
Yeah.
I look at my kids and it probably hasn't. And I think that's because they've gone into a mindset of seeing both their parents being very engaged in terms of volunteering activities, and especially my youngest daughter who went to Atlantic College, and it's all about volunteering there. Yeah, okay. So it's a baccalaureate rather than a degree. Yeah. I'm going to say a third of their time, if not more, is spent in the local community volunteering and helping.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I think that you're either, it comes to you later in life, or your parents indoctrinate you and make you do it.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I interrupted you. Do you remember where you were at?
Yeah, so I was going to say, I'm going to try and take between 10 and 15 minutes, no more, and not overspeak and go on too much. So those of you that know me, I'm the MD of IFM. It started off 20 years ago, as you said. It was in 1999, and back then, you know, news was delivered on in magazines. You know, it was printed on paper that was stuck or stapled together and sent in the post to places where people worked, offices. Wow. So much changed in the last, since the last century.
Yeah, for sure.
So what have I done in terms of volunteering? Well, I started off with what was then the BIFM, or now the IWFM. I did two-year terms as the individual members representative. I think it was the only role on the members' council that the members voted somebody in for. I think everybody else, you get in by different ways. I then became a board director of the Facilities Management Association. Unfortunately, that's no longer going. After that merged with Athletic Skills, it kind of went into administration. Yeah. I then became the treasurer of the Women in FM group for about 3 years. which then led me on to become a judge and then a lead judge of the Women in the City, where there was the FM category. I was then asked to become the treasurer of the newly appointed IFMA UK chapter a couple of years ago, and that also managed to get me to help out with the RICS FM board.
Yeah.
And I've just become the webmaster for a livery, which I've been a liveryman for, which is a virtual company of pattern makers. Martin Pickard and a few others introduced me to, and there's quite a strong community of FMs there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of all the different things that I've sort of volunteered doing. So of course, IFM's always been about providing information and news and providing a knowledge to people. But I also think that sort of getting involved in all of these things and providing events is also about providing knowledge to people.
Yeah.
And I also think meeting people provides knowledge. And I think that there's an awful lot of times where other FMs, so if you're just a practitioner, you know, you could be in quite a small team within an organisation. And therefore it's really good to have an outside network that you can rely upon, because lots of those other people have gone through what you're about to go through.
Exactly.
Before.
Yeah.
They know the pitfalls, they know the warnings, and they can give you some advice. Yeah. They can also recommend you to other organisations that will be able to help you along the line.
Yeah. I always say that getting a room full of operational, not just operational, whether it's service side, client side, it's like a self-help group, because everyone has been through the same stuff. You're not the only person that it's like, what was the TV program? Embarrassing Bodies. You know, it's like the embarrassing bodies of FM, because we've all had that issue to deal with. So talk about it and somebody will have some ideas. And you don't get those ideas, like you say, unless you're in those sorts of environments. So
I think one of the most interesting things, when I was doing some work with the women in FM, we ran an event at Facebook. And it turned out that the facilities manager there had regular monthly meetings with people from LinkedIn, so other social media FMs. And there was a real direct, you know, relevance for them to learn what they were doing compared to what they were doing.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, running FM is very different for different types of organisation. And of course, with social media, you're attracting in very much more techies, and therefore they've got a very much different expectation of the building.
Yeah.
And it's not just about going down the initiation slide. It's about how you work with other people and the collaborative space.
Yeah.
I think that's all changing now for FMs. And one of the things I think about sort of volunteering is, so it's not just about putting on events and meeting people and helping them with knowledge. It's also about shaping the industry.
Yeah.
And I think that was the one thing that I really wanted to get involved with the FMA when I did. Was because I wanted to try and help shape the future of the industry.
Yeah.
And I think there is quite a difference between, I like to call it a sector rather than anything else, but there is clearly a profession and an industry.
Yeah.
And I think there's also practitioners and tacticians. And so I think there's a home for lots of different people. And I kind of believe that, you know, the RICS are there for the more of the tacticians, you know, the strategic thinkers in FM.
Yeah.
At a higher level. And I think that you know, the place for the IWFM has very much been for, as a members institute, is to get people trained up from the bottom up, ready to then go on to say, go to RICS. And I think the FMA was really the trade organisation and was there for the suppliers, you know, the industry rather than the profession.
Yeah.
But I think that everything's kind of blurred, and I think that, you know, in certain respects, IWFM wanted to be everything to everyone, and it couldn't possibly. I think that nowadays they're less of a professional members institute and more of a training organisation that just happens to run a conference and also an awards dinner. And I think they've become more commercially minded rather than being a members institute looking after the members' interest.
We may get a second request from Chris Moriarty to come and defend his corner, right?
And that's fair enough. And I know that he talked about the workplace opportunity.
Yeah.
And then I think he talked about the missed opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think the danger is they're going to miss a big opportunity. Yeah. And I think the danger that they're missing at the moment is everyone's looking at the moment in COVID times for security and cleaning. And, you know, they're two very valuable parts of facilities management. But facilities management is the management of other services.
Yeah.
I don't want FM to be thought of as just cleaning.
Yeah.
And I think that's the danger.
Yeah.
What we should be promoting FM at the moment is a professional discipline that's strategic as well as operational, that is working with HR, IT,
yeah,
and other support services. And perhaps FM should be the glue.
Yeah.
Because it's always been the glue that's kept other industries together.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's where, you know, that's the opportunity that FM has. I think the danger is that we're not going to rise to that challenge.
Yeah.
You know,
I've said it, I think, on previous videos. You know, on training courses, I always show a slide that say FM is the management of, and then have all the things that come up that we manage, whether it's building, services, property, leases, people, standards, compliance. It's managing, isn't it? So we don't want to just be seen as X, Y, or Z. You know, it's a strategic function of managing.
And it's huge. I mean, if you look at Martin Pickard's mind map,
yeah, brilliant,
and you look at all the different services that are in there, and I think that, you know, there are service providers out there that call themselves facility services, and then there are others that call it facilities management. And I think there's a big difference between facilities management and facility services. Yeah, it's in the name. One's providing a service, the other one's providing management. Yeah, and I think that when I first came into the sector, and we were doing IFM, we worked with a company called CBX, and CBX was a management buyout.
That's how I started. That was my first job.
Right.
CBX. Yeah.
There you go. and it's interesting how many people I've known from a very small organisation that then left and went on to other organisations. Yeah. But they were a management consultancy. They were management consultants. They were project management. Yeah. And what's more is that they were independent.
Yeah, but they came out of Rank Xerox, didn't they?
They did, and Curry and Brown. So, you know, there was chartered surveyors, and they were an in-house team. Yeah. And they were an in-house team that said, we'd be managing the in-house services for Xerox. Yeah. We could manage the services for other organisations. Yeah. And they did it on an independent basis, and they would find the best service provider. Yeah. And create the specification for you. Yeah. And then manage that process on your behalf. Yeah. What I think we've seen is that service providers have taken on lots of different other services and integrated it all, and then managed that process too. Yeah. But
whilst you and I could talk about this and shared history, I am conscious we're steering away from volunteering engagement and participation. So I'm thinking, what also might be a useful video actually is somebody talking about the history of bringing to life like you are, because it's fascinating actually. And
I'll put a plug in on IFM. There's a
speaking about it actually is different to reading it, isn't it? And it's really interesting. It's really interesting to hear you talk about it. Give us some takeaways then. Give us some, you know, somebody watching this thinking, look, everything as David has said, I completely agree with that. I want to get engaged. I want to get more involved. What are some of the things you would suggest that people do? Give me a couple of things.
Okay, so whilst FM's kind of pretty much focused in London and the Southeast, there are so many regions. And I honestly believe that IWFM, that the heart or the beating heart and soul of it are the regional events. Yeah. And they really do suffer. So I think that the London region has always had a plethora of volunteers ready to step up to the mantle and volunteer, whereas I think the regions suffer a little bit more. Yeah.
The Southwest region is amazing, she says, as an ex-chair, but I know that the committee now, honestly, they do brilliant events and put on full-day training for, you know, hundreds of people, and that's what they need to be like. It's getting that level of engagement. So
absolutely, and you know, and the women in FM bit, again, people queuing up to volunteer for that, and we put on some amazing events.
So go to regional events is what.
Go to regional events.
Yeah. Okay.
See what you can do to assist.
Yeah.
I think I mean, the way that the whole structure of the organisation starts is it all starts from people being on an event committee or a regional event committee, because it's only when you've become a chair of a regional or a special interest group, that you then get invited onto the members council, and from the members council you can then get voted onto the board or onto other things. And I think it's important that people do volunteer, learn to put on great events for other people, meet other people, and then help steer the direction and the leadership of things like the IWFM.
And I think everyone has a different motivation for doing it. I know some of the people who've joined the Southwest region just somebody wanted to gain a bit of confidence, somebody else wanted to learn how to do this, somebody else, do you know what I mean? Each one of us has a different motivation to do it, and some people would never want to be on the board of IWFM. It's not something they want, but they want to see who else is in the region who they can talk to. Judging is interesting. I've been a judge on the IWFM Awards as well, and it's fascinating, isn't it? And are you still a lead judge, are you?
No, so that was in the Women in the City, and I'm not on that. I'm still a judge on the Technology and FM Awards. And you know what? Every year it brings different organisations to you. They present what they've been doing within the industry, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. And you get to see people on a different way, and you get to meet people on it, but you learn. And I think that's it. And then, of course, if you are a judge, you then get invited to the awards dinner, and then you get to meet other people on the table. So, you know, but again, I don't want people to do it because of what they gain from it. I think it's about giving. Because you give so much time, as we know, so many of these things. If you were to invoice for that time, blimey. Well, exactly. So it's not about sort of trying to sort of work out how much you've gained back from it, because I don't think you ever will.
No, I agree.
I think on a commercial basis, you're never going to be able to do that. There are certain professions, right? Maybe recruitment, where you're going to meet lots of people. That's going to be really advantageous for you, and you probably will have a net benefit gain from it.
But that shouldn't be your motivation. And certainly I think for most people I know, you know, you look at your starting point of this, which is that you watch the videos and you enjoy watching them because you know so many of the people. Doesn't mean you've done business with them. It just means they've become friends and colleagues. And somebody said in another video, they talked about the difference between networking and connecting. And I think that's the point. You know, you only get to connect with people when you step out and you go to an event, or you go and participate in something, rather than just reading and having that distance. And I think, David, one of the issues is lots of people think they're connecting because they're doing it over Twitter or LinkedIn, and that is not the same. It's not.
No. So the people that I kind of count as friends, they started off as either a colleague or just acquaintances, and it's because of the things that you've got in common, not business, personal things.
Exactly.
And you like them, and you get on with them. Exactly. And then they say, hey, do you fancy going and doing this at the weekend? And you say, yeah. And it's not about trying to build up your business. It's about doing things because you enjoy their company. And as we said, or because you want to give something back. So I think the whole thing about volunteering, engagement, participation, you've got to be really clear about it's not about what's in it for you necessarily. There's a bit more to it. Exactly. Listen, we're at nearly 18. Well, we're at 18 minutes, David. Oh, right. Okay.
We could probably do about 38 minutes quite comfortably. So I'm gonna draw us to a close. But we covered a lot of ground, and actually I think there was some really interesting content. I think for people who know the industry well, or the sector well, as you describe it, or who are newer, I think there'll be some interesting points there. So thank you with your experience. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
I hope somebody watches it.
They will. Thanks, David.